You know, sometimes I feel like lure companies aren't putting a whole lot of thought into the naming of their lures, almost like they're using an online rap name generator or something.
Oh my God, bro.
But other times, companies can totally nail it. And this lure right here is perfectly named. It is the Mach Werkbait. Time to get to work. What's going on, folks? My name is Tyler, and my goal is to help you guys become better anglers and catch more fish, as well as understanding more about your lures and how they work. How they work, that's funny. I'm gonna unintentionally make that pun a lot. So the first question is, what the heck is the workbait? Well, it is a shallow diving, floating jerkbait. So let's dissect that real quick. Shallow diving means that it's not deep diving, it dives to shallow water. The floor that it can dive to is in shallow water, and it is a floating jerkbait, which means that once it dives to a certain depth, it doesn't stay there, it doesn't sink, it floats up in the water column. And when I define jerkbait, I think of it as a lure that needs some work added to it to give it the action intended to catch fish. And that's exactly why it's called the workbait, because you gotta put in work. And one more thing about this bait is that it is a relatively small profile. I'd say it's no more than 3.5 inches long. It definitely imitates a smaller size bait fish. So if in your pond or lake you have small bait fish the bass are keying in on, this is going to be the bait for you. So the second question is, where is the workbait useful as a lure? Where does it catch bass? Well, it catches bass in either shallow water or clear water, and if you can combine the two, shallow, clear water, that's great, but you don't need both. Either shallow water that's dirty or dingy, or deeper water that's clear. The inside of this bait has some awesome loud rattles you can hopefully hear there. And as you retrieve this thing side to side, as we're gonna talk about here in a second, it definitely captures the attention of fish in both clear water and dirty. So when it comes to retrieval, that is the crucial part to get right with a lure like the workbait, the jerkbait category. So I'm gonna cast it out there, and it's a floating lure, so you can let it sit there for as long as you want. It's not gonna sink. And a jerkbait gets its name because of the jerking action you have to do to your rod to get that bait to dive down and then go left, right. And that triggers a fish into eating, which is exactly why we called it the workbait, because just like a jerkbait, you've gotta give it some work to give it some action to entice a fish into eating. The standard jerkbait retrieve is to cast it out there, give it a few winds of the handle to get it down to maximum diving depth, and then jerk, jerk, pause. Jerk, pause, and really vary to find out what the fish want on your body of water on that specific day. But with this bait, because it is a slow floating jerkbait, the longer you let it sit there without adding more jerks to the cadence, the more it's going to rise up in the water column until eventually it's all the way on the surface. So for this one, you actually have to give it a little more work, a little more jerks to keep that bait down there. And that's why this bait excels so much in warmer water, especially post-spawn to late fall. This bait is fantastic. Again, if retrieved like this, rod tip down, returning your rod once you jerk it back to the resting position in front of you, almost like you are hitting a snare drum with your stick, and then right back to up top. That's exactly what you're doing with a jerkbait rod tip. Let me back up here. Jerk, jerk, pause. Jerk, jerk, pause. Jerk, pause. And oftentimes the way that you're gonna know you have a bite is if you're jerking and all of a sudden you go to jerk and it feels like something's heavy, that's probably a fish, so lean into it. There's no reason to jerk, feel the fish, and then set the hook really hard because you're gonna pull the hook out of their mouth. A jerkbait just needs a little lean into, and you're gonna have that fish hooked every single time. So let's talk real quick about colors and your rod, reel, and line selection for the workbait. I am almost always going to be throwing a crazy off-the-wall color or a natural color. Because you give this bait so much action, I don't really think the fish have a whole lot of time to inspect it and be like, is that thing real? The eyes are a little bit far off, and it doesn't exactly look like the shad that I've been eating. I don't think fish are doing that. I think fish see a color, they see a pattern, and as it flashes by them, they make the decision that day on what color they want to eat most and which one I think kind of aggravates them the most. So I do love throwing natural colors and the off-the-wall, the pinks, the purples, the chartreuses, especially for smallmouth and spotted bass. They can all catch fish. You gotta have a few of them and test out colors every day to find what your fish really want. Now, when it comes to the rod and reel combo, I almost always throw this thing on a medium action rod. And the reasoning for that is because as you are really jerking that bait, it's so easy on a medium heavy rod, especially with a fast action, to pull the hooks out of a fish's mouth, because oftentimes they'll be following the jerkbait and they're not just gonna smoke it, they're kind of gonna nip at it a little bit, oftentimes that back treble hook. So with a medium rod, you're able to be jerking, and then you kind of, one of the jerks you do, the fish is on there and you don't pull the hooks out. Because trust me, a jerkbait, it is so easy, especially a shallow diving one. You just want to give yourself the most leeway possible, the most cushion possible. And so I think a medium action rod with 10-pound fluorocarbon is the best for that. So if you've got bass in your body of water that are feeding on tiny bait fish and you want to give them an aggressive look, the workbait is the bait for you. Hopefully y'all learned something today. My name is Tyler, and we'll see you guys next time right here on Mach Nation.